Welcome, and thank you for joining us today. Over the past 12 to 18 months, the conversation around AI has shifted from hype to real-world application, especially in the enterprise. For procurement and supplier management teams, the opportunity is no longer theoretical. AI is already shaping how we engage with suppliers, manage risk, improve data quality, and drive process efficiency. And so today, we will look at some practical applications of AI in order to provide us with some real-world context. Before we dive into that, just a small piece of housekeeping for the webinar. You'll see that there is a chat box functionality for any questions, comments, feedback, or observations that you may have while we explore this topic. Please do share your thoughts and insights as we work through the material, as we'd love to hear your own experiences. And for any questions that are raised, we will get back to you individually with a response, so do feel free to use that functionality. On the call today from the HICX side, you have myself, Duncan Clark, and I look after product marketing here at HICX, and Phil, our head of solution consulting, will be taking us through those all-important use cases later on in today's session. Talking of today's session, here's a quick look at the agenda. So I will start with a brief and predominantly non-technical introduction to AI, although we will touch upon the flavors of AI briefly as we set the scene for the demo later on. I'll take a look at the business context and we'll explore some of the supplier management specific applications of AI and what it means for us in the world of procurement and supply chain. Then on to the use cases. Phil will start us off with the supplier chatbot, and we'll see how this is integrated into the HICX platform for suppliers, before moving on to the other side of the coin, the internal user chatbot, and how both of these can be used to enhance the supplier and internal user experience. We'll then take a look at the document analyzer and how this can be used, and we'll round off with two related use cases, namely business process analysis and business process builder. Then at the end, we'll bring all these topics together and explore the next steps in our journey to AI and the future of procurement. All right, first of all, a brief scene set. What is the promise of AI? So, of course, AI is all about systems that simulate human intelligence through learning and problem solving, which means that it will enable us to work smarter, faster, and better, or in other words, to boost productivity and enhance user experience. And keep in mind those 2 points, so productivity and user experience, as they will be recurring themes throughout the presentation and the demo. But the result is that we're seeing AI impact our industry more than ever before. In truth, it will reshape how we work. And the matter is urgent because those organizations already leveraging AI will be able to do more with less. So competitively, it's hugely important. Okay, so let's put our industry lens on this. And of course, for quite a while now, AI was traditionally viewed as a future-facing investment. Yes, it promised efficiency, but was often sidelined by more immediate operational priorities. But most recently, that has undeniably changed. And indeed, it has changed fast, perhaps more rapidly than we could have imagined. So what's happened? Well, aside from the technological advances, I think we have also seen how the convergence of three key forces have quickly turned AI from a nice to have into a strategic imperative in supplier management. These forces being supply chain volatility, rising compliance pressure, and the explosion of supplier data. First, the global disruptions of the past 5 years, from pandemics to geopolitical tensions, have exposed deep fragilities in supplier ecosystems. Manual, reactive processes are no longer fit for purpose in a world where speed and agility are everything. So AI provides the predictive insights and automation needed to anticipate risk, accelerate onboarding, and drive better supplier decisions at scale. Second, regulations like CSRD, the EU Deforestation Regulation, and Modern Slavery Acts demand proactive compliance. And this across multiple tiers of suppliers. AI enables organizations to continuously monitor ESG, financial, and reputational risks in ways that traditional systems simply can't. And third, supplier management remains a data challenge. Thousands of suppliers, scattered systems, and fragmented workflows have created complexity that humans alone can't manage effectively. AI, and especially machine learning, large language models, those types of examples, can clean, classify, and contextualize supplier data to better support areas like governance and collaboration. So in short, AI isn't just that efficiency tool anymore as we traditionally viewed it. It's now foundational to resilience, agility, regulatory readiness, and delivering a supplier experience that creates competitive advantage. So I promise to keep the technical talk to a minimum, as today the focus is on use cases, but it is worth bearing in mind these two distinct types of AI, as the distinction helps with understanding how it relates to business value. First, generative AI. Now, this refers to models that create new content based on patterns in existing data. We can think of large language models, so LLMs like ChatGPT, or image generators, for example. In supplier management, generative AI might help draft onboarding communications, summarize supplier documents, or translate policies across languages and contexts. It excels at tasks like content creation, transformation, and contextual understanding at scale. Agentic AI, on the other hand, goes a step further. These are systems that not only generate responses or insights, but also take actions on your behalf, autonomously or semi-autonomously. Agentic AI can navigate workflows, trigger follow-ups, make decisions within set parameters, and complete tasks across systems. In supplier management, this could include initiating a risk review based on updated data, sending reminders for compliance documentation, or escalating a blocked invoice for resolution, for example. The reason why it's important to distinguish between the two is because they solve different types of problems and therefore can require different governance and infrastructure. So these are the points to remember. Generative AI is primarily about intelligence augmentation. That means it enhances human productivity, improves communication, and speeds up decision-making by transforming information. Agentic AI, on the other hand, is about operational automation. It removes manual effort from repetitive rules-based processes, enabling scale and consistency across thousands of suppliers and transactions. In supplier management, where organizations are dealing with fragmented data, complex workflows, and increasing compliance demands, understanding this distinction helps leaders match the right technology to the right use case and ensures AI investments are focused on business outcomes, not just the hype. In the 5 use cases that we look at in a moment today, we will see examples of both generative AI and agentic AI. But before we get to those 5 use cases, let's look at the broader picture for one moment and perhaps spark some thoughts and ideas on the art of the possible. So, as we just mentioned, generative AI can analyze, summarize, and create content. So, turning structured and unstructured data into insights, communication, and decisions. So, some of the examples here could be automated supplier feedback reports. So, in this, the function would be to create supplier-specific performance summaries using internal KPIs, benchmarking insights, and peer comparison. Now, this has the impact of improving transparency and trust, and it can enhance supplier engagement as well. Number 2, second example, could be smart supplier communications. So here we're thinking about drafting targeted emails, portal announcements, or alerts that are personalized perhaps by supplier segment. So for example, by region, by risk, by category. Now this again can increase engagement, it reduces the support burden, and it improves clarity of communication. A third example might be executive summaries for procurement leaders. So here we're thinking real-time narrative summaries, perhaps on supplier performance, risk trends, or compliance gaps. And this empowers quicker executive decision-making. A fourth example, similar, could be ESG narrative generation. So turn ESG scorecard data and supplier audits into readable, standardized disclosure reports for regulatory bodies. And this could have the impact of reducing manual effort, for example, for CSRD, EUDR, or Scope 3 reporting. And another use case may be as a knowledge assistant for procurement teams. So here we're looking at answering natural questions, natural language questions perhaps, like what's our onboarding cycle time in EMEA, or which suppliers failed performance benchmarks in Q1. And this can have the impact of drastically lowering barriers to insight access. Okay, so that was generative AI. Now a look at agentic AI. So just as a reminder, here we're referring to autonomous or semi-autonomous agents that can make decisions, perform tasks, and interact with systems or users without constant human oversight. So some of the examples of use cases here might be autonomous supplier onboarding agents. So here the function would be handling new supplier requests, data entry validation, documentation collection, and status updates across onboarding workflows. The expected impact would be we'd want to cut onboarding time, reduce manual interventions, and ensure data completeness at creation. A second example might be supplier relationship agents. So in this case, the Agentic AI is acting as a virtual supplier relationship manager, so an SRM manager, to monitor communications, performance metrics, and milestones, with the impact of proactively being able to flag bottlenecks, ensure follow-up actions take place, such as SLA breach alerts, and recommend interventions. A third example could be risk monitoring bots. So here we'd want AI to be continuously scanning internal and external sources, maybe, such as ESG scores, financial health, news, sanctions, a long list there for specific risk indicators. Now, the impact here could be that we are creating for ourselves an early warning system for supplier risk mitigation. Another example would be a compliance enforcement agent. So here we'd want the function of the AI to automate review and also do the flagging of missing certifications, expired documents, or any non-compliance issues based on supplier profile segments. What we want to do here, the objective is prevent lapses, lower audit risk, enforce consistency across regions as well. And then a fifth example could be supplier data governance agents. In this case, we're looking for autonomous agents to detect duplicate suppliers, perhaps, or trigger cleanup workflows, and also suggest hierarchy restructuring where necessary. The impact here would be ensuring golden records and being able to enforce our supplier data hierarchy standards. All right, so that's the background, that's the context, so some pieces to think about there. But let's change gear now and have a look at some of this in action. So I will stop here and pass it over to Phil to take us through the examples.
Good afternoon. My name is Philip Pandal, and I'm part of the solution consulting team at HICX. I'm very excited to be presenting the demonstration on artificial intelligence and the use cases that we apply within our solution. For the first use case, we'll look at our supplier chatbot, which is embedded within the supplier experience portal. What we can see when I sign in as a supplier, this is my home page or landing page. As you may or may not know, the HICX solution is a low-code solution, and that means you can create any number of tabs within the supplier experience portal that you wish. You can add pages, subpages, and any content. I've added my supplier-facing chatbot directly to the home page to support suppliers in navigating the relationship they have with my organization. Suppliers can ask predefined questions. So if you've got historical questions or queries that your suppliers ask of your organization, you can upload them and the responses directly into your supplier experience chatbot. Here, the supplier has asked what the benefits of the portal are for me, and I can see that this chatbot has answered and informed them that in using the experience portal, they can look at making cost savings, increasing and improving efficiency, compliance, working capital, and also cost avoidance. Some of the other questions that you may see from suppliers are things such as how do they raise support tickets or engage with your organization? What the chatbot will do is support the supplier in navigating to the correct place within the portal in this example. Other queries might be if your suppliers are having issues or problems with their invoices. They will be informed of the specific tabs and the places to go. And also where suppliers have single sign-on to best-of-breed platforms, it's going to tell them how to click onto those. For this second use case, we're going to look at our internal user chatbot. Here, I'm signed in as an internal user within your organization. And directly on my homepage, we have our AI assistant. The internal user has the ability to ask predefined questions to the chatbot, such as how do I onboard a new supplier? How would I update my payment terms? How would I extend a supplier? Any of those processes that you have within your HICX solution, you can ask the chatbot and it will respond. So here we can see that we've asked how do I onboard a new supplier, and the chatbot has told us where to go to and how to request to onboard a new supplier. Common use cases that we found with our chatbot are that if you want to help to onboard new employees, you can upload and the chatbot will help them with content associated to their specific role within your organization. So for example, if we have a new category manager and they want to understand how your organization builds a procurement and or category strategy, I can ask my chatbot and it's going to provide me with information on how to build a procurement and or category strategy. Here, it's told me to establish a category structure, analyze the current state, perform our risk assessments, identify alternative suppliers, consider specific levers, create action plans, and summarize the strategies. Now, as we manage the processes within HICX, we can further ask the chatbot more in how will we create an action plan within the HICX solution? How would I perform a risk assessment or campaign within the HICX solution? So the chatbot is supporting the internal user in managing the processes that are part of their daily operations. For this third use case, I'm going to look at our Agentic AI use case using our document analyzer. In this example, I'm signed in as an internal user. I can navigate to my document dashboard. And as an internal user, I have received terms and conditions from a supplier. What I would like to do is use the AI assistant to analyze those terms and conditions and identify anything that might be of concern to my organization. What I'm going to do is add the terms and conditions and request that the document analyzer processes those documents so I can begin to ask specific questions associated with that, either contract, terms and agreements, or insurance certificates that we may receive from suppliers. I can see that the document analyzer has extracted the text for me from this specific document. It's also extracted all of the tables. And what I can see is this is the document that I've uploaded. It's extracted all of the tables and the information. What the document analyzer now does is allows me to ask questions associated with this document. So a key example may be if I want to ask the document analyzer to identify the top 10 key concerns that I should have as an organization. What the document analyzer is now doing is reviewing that text and is going to identify the top 10 concerns. What I can then do with the Agentic AI is ask it to rank those top 10 concerns in order of one that must be the one that would cause me the most concern. What we'll see with the future use case is that based on these top 10 concerns, financial exposure, for example, product and recall liability, based on these, I can then ask it to reroute the workflow or create me a workflow and requesting that legal will review and approve or reject this document. I have the ability to analyze the extracted tests. I have a full history of all questions asked, and I have a file version view of that document. And I can create any number of analysis of any documents that we receive from our external suppliers and or that we want to process internally. As part of the fourth AI use case, we're going to look at our business process analysis utilizing artificial intelligence. Here, I'm logged into my internal user portal, and we have access to all of the workflows that exist in the system, but also the ability to upload them separately. If I select the first of the 400 plus workflows, I have the ability to review the workflows and look at the different tasks, the listeners, the documentation, and the steps associated with those. The first AI use case here is where I can ask AI to explain the process to me. How this is useful is that a key user that might not understand the current workflow or current process we have, for example, with onboarding a supplier, can ask the AI to explain that process. Here, it's given me a high-level overview of the process, different workflow steps, and any key features. Now, I can copy that into any project documentation or business process documentation that I have internally. Second element of this use case is where I will ask AI to analyze the process and also generate a process image. What AI is going to do then is provide me with a more detailed explanation of the business process, documentation of that process, and also an image. If I work either as part of IT, procurement, or anywhere within the business where I need to understand and document any processes that you have within the solution, I now have the ability to do that utilizing AI. Here, I have a more detailed understanding of the same process used in the previous use case. I have a process documentation and image, and I can save the analysis as a PDF or copy to an internal site, for example. For the next use case, I'm going to demonstrate how AI is supporting our business process builder. Here, I've entered the internal user portal. Using our AI solution, you now have the ability to build business processes using AI. You can enter your requirements within the requirements area. Here, I'm asking AI to build me a process where if a user requests time off and the request is greater than 10 days, we want to route that approval to a departmental manager. Otherwise, we want to route it directly to the line manager. Once the request is complete, we want to email the requester what that final decision has been. AI is now building my business process within the solution. As we've seen in previous use cases, once that process is built, I can then use AI to analyze and summarize that business process for me. We have seen a variety of use cases associated to this, where during project, we're reducing cost and time by using AI to build the business processes. If we need to re-engineer a process using HICX's low-code solution, again, we can use AI to build that new business process. AI has built the process that I've requested. Now let's have a look and see some of the details of the processes that it has built. Here, if I select a transition, I can see that where the number of days is less than 10, or greater than 10, sorry, it's going to go to my departmental manager. If the number of days here is less than 10, it's going to go directly to my line manager. Not only has it produced the business process diagram, it's produced the full details and the script required to ensure that process works. As another example, let's ask the solution to build us an onboarding process. Here, it's going to analyze my requirements, where we've asked it, if we start from a request form from a user to onboard a new supplier, we're asking the business process to collect the initial data about the supplier and then route that for approval before sending an email directly to the supplier asking for more information and data to be provided. Once the supplier has submitted their data, we're requesting that an email is sent to the requester, informing them that the supplier has populated their information, and then we're going to route for the appropriate approval. And if more data is needed, we're going to go back to the supplier and ask for additional data to be populated. AI is generating the business process model. Once that's complete, we can look at the different properties and the steps, transitions, email notifications that have been generated for that process. Here, within our workflow diagram, I can see that we're initiating an onboarding request. Someone is going to approve that request. If the request is approved, we're going to email the supplier and request that they submit data. If that approval is rejected, the supplier will be rejected and the requester will be informed. And then we'll move through the process until we get to the point of a fully approved supplier. We can see that the system has generated a user task. The users are part of the procurement manager group, and we have documentation and information available, including the full business process tasks listed here. As in within the previous use case, I can ask our AI solution to analyze that process and produce an output of the documentation for me. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Phil, for the demonstrations there. So I think just to wrap up, what's clear from the discussion today is that AI is no longer just about the technology. It's also all about readiness. And readiness here means laying the right foundations, not just for innovation's sake, but also those considerations of scale, governance, and business impact. To become truly AI ready, organizations perhaps have three things on the checklist that I may suggest. Number one is clean, connected, and contextual supplier data. So AI can only be as powerful as the data that it runs on. So whether it's generating insights or executing autonomous workflows, it starts with mastering supplier data, cleaning it, governing it, and enriching it across systems. This is where that single source of truth, or establishing a single source of truth for the supplier, becomes crucial. Number two is a unified experience layer for suppliers and users, and the importance of that, as we've seen in the chatbot and portal examples, embedding AI into real workflows, so not just dashboards, but that's where we get real tangible value. That means designing experiences that remove friction, whether you're a supplier responding to a request or a procurement user searching for insights. And then the third one perhaps is that strategic mindset shift. So AI isn't a one-time project, it's an entirely new way of operating. So organizations need to think beyond these pilot use cases and start building scalable governance models, setting clear criteria for when AI acts autonomously, how feedback loops are built in, and how to align these agents with business objectives. So in short, AI will not replace the value of human expertise in procurement, but those who embrace it and build the conditions for it to thrive will outperform those who don't. Well, we hope today's session has sparked ideas and inspired confidence to take the next step in your AI journey. If you'd like to discuss how HICX can support that transformation or explore any of today's use cases further, please do reach out. And thank you everybody for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed it, and we look forward to continuing the conversation.